Question for you. Do you actually feel worthy of what it is that you want?
What could you accomplish if you had the motivation that you wish to have? What could you accomplish if you no longer procrastinated? Because everybody feels like they're lacking motivation, and everybody feels plagued by procrastination. There are things in your reality that you know you should be doing that would lead to the materialization of your desired reality, but for whatever reason, you just can't seem to do it.
An individual that can't discipline themselves will struggle to control their mind. And if you can't control your mind, how could you ever control reality? Your self-worth isn't at the level that it needs to be for you to manifest what it is that you want. And unfortunately, you have not mastered yourself. You see, most people think that they have a problem when it comes to manifestation, but the truth is you don't. Your problem actually isn't manifestation. You know the techniques, you know to live in the end, you know to think from the end, you know to embody the state of consciousness or frequency that's in resonance with your desired reality. You know all of that. But the issue is on a subconscious level, you actually don't believe you deserve what it is that you want to manifest. And the unfortunate thing is, if that feeling of being undeserving of your desired reality is too powerful, even if you have everything that should qualify you to bring it into existence, you're either going to fail to be able to sustain that frequency, or you're going to deteriorate and dissolve that frequency, which then ultimately leads to a collapse of your desired reality. So it's important that you master self-love, self-worth, and self-discipline, because it's connected to the universe. But when I say self-discipline, I don't mean in that kind of David Goggins type self-discipline where you're going to have to, be on point. It's just a different perception on self-discipline, because the individual who can control themselves can control the universe. And if you can raise your self-worth to be in resonance with what it is that you want, you'll bring it into existence way easier than you think. Everybody's familiar with the basics. You don't even need to study. You really don't even have to read a lot of books to be, familiar with the basics. Most of you are familiar with the basics. Your issue is that on a subconscious level, there's an aspect of your mind that is in contradiction to the idea that you deserve what it is that you want. And the unfortunate thing is there are people who are far less qualified than you that have what it is that you desire, all because they have no feeling of being undeserving of it. Listen to what I just said again. There are people that are far less qualified that have what it is that you desire to bring into existence simply because of one thing. They have no feeling of being undeserving of it. And we all see these people. You've seen them. Individuals that somehow are able to materialize the amount of money that you wish to have, or the relationship that you aspire to have, or a career advancement the way that you have, or the opportunity. And it's simply because most of us just subconsciously feel undeserving of what it is that we want to manifest. And unfortunately, so long as that feeling of being undeserving persists, you will quite literally repel your desired reality from coming into existence, even if you have everything that it should. And I see this all the time. We see the individual that's qualified for employment, but simply due to the subconscious feeling of being undeserving of that role, repels the potentiality of bringing that role into existence. Vice versa, the individual who is far less qualified than that individual, but simply feels deserving of it, somehow has the capability of bringing that opportunity or that career into existence. We see the people that are able to easily, and I mean easily, have money come to them, that are far less qualified than you simply because they feel deserving of that money. A sense of entitlement. The truth of the matter is, most people see reality and themselves as separate things, but in fact, they are one. It is a quite literal universe. There's no separation between you and reality, and it's actually the false idea that there's a separation between you and reality that presents this illusion that you're separate. And that illusion of being separate makes you think that what goes on up here is disconnected from what goes on out of there. But as has been said across a multitude of spiritual traditions, as within, as without, on earth as it is in heaven, Allah does not change the conditions of a people until they change what is within themselves. So stop seeing you separate from reality. You quite literally are reality. Reality is quite literally you. You are a microcosm of a macrocosm. You are quite literally a walking universe. Hence why you are bound by the laws of the universe. Now, self-worth is the ceiling of all you can manifest. Now, when I say the ceiling, Ceiling over here, your desire over here, you over here. If your desired reality exists above your self-worth, then unfortunately, you are going to hit that ceiling and come down every time and fail to reach your desired reality. And we see this time and time again. Question for you: do you actually feel worthy of what it is that you want? And I'm gonna have to challenge your definition of what self-worth is, because what you think self-worth is isn't what you actually think it is. Most people think self-worth is the simplicity of what they think that they deserve, and that's not the truth. But it's the ceiling of anything that you could manifest. Meaning, if something exists outside the confinements of your self-worth, it exists out the confinements of your reality. Just to repeat, if something exists outside the confinements or the boundaries of your self-worth, then it exists outside of your reality, even if it should. I always say to people, frequency defies rationality. Simplistic way of saying that is, frequency can make things that don't make sense sense. And most people perceive that to be a good thing, but it can also work against you in a sense where something that should make sense, you should have more money, you should have the relationship that you want, you should have the level of business success that you want, you should have the type of career position that you want, but you don't have it, even though you should. That's an indication to me that what you desire probably more than likely exists outside the confinements of your self-worth. Now, the other thing is self-discipline. Understand one thing. I think discipline is one of the most underused words in the entirety of manifestation. And I say that to say, most of our definition on discipline, because of social media, is waking up at 3 in the morning, going for a 10-kilometer run, coming back, drinking 10 gallons of water, being locked in for 10 hours a day, and then sleeping for 50 hours a day. Like, most people's level of discipline is so, I don't know what the word is, it's so definitive to a point where it's so restricting that most of us have an adverse relationship with the idea of discipline. So when I say discipline, please don't think I'm going to be having you moving like a monk out here. It's far from that. But I'm going to have to get you to realize one thing. The individual that can control themselves controls reality. And unfortunately, if you can't control yourself, then you can't control reality. How the fuck does it make sense to you that you can't control yourself, yet you think you can control the universe? Especially when you and the universe are one. In fact, it's your ability to control yourself that directly reflects out into the universe for a multitude of reasons. If you can't command yourself, then how could you ever command the forces outside of you? If you haven't mastered yourself, then how could you ever expect or even trust and believe that you could possibly master the universe? I see this all the time. Once again, I'm not saying that you have to be a monk or you need to train like a Navy SEAL in terms of discipline. But what I'm trying to get you to realize is that there's going to have to come a point where you recognize if you wish to rearrange reality, that's a direct reflection of your ability to rearrange yourself. And rearranging yourself requires discipline. And if you have no discipline, unfortunately, you won't even believe you. Because understand what all of this is. All of this is just a game of getting your subconscious mind to be convinced that you already have what it is that you desire. You need to be it before the word proves it to you. The word believing, take the first 2 letters of the word believing. There's no belief without being. You have to begin to embody that in the present reality right now to such a degree that what you wish to bring into existence is within you to such a degree that you no longer desire or see yourself separate from you. But how could you ever possibly do that if you can't even direct your mind, if you can't even direct your attention, if you can't even control your reaction, if you can't alter your perception, if you can't control your beliefs, if you can't control your emotions? How could you ever expect to control reality if you can't control the fundamental thing that leads to reality being reflected? How could that possibly make sense? It makes no sense at all. But once again, you have to first remove this, preconceived notion that discipline is going to require you to be a monk. It's actually far more simple than that. And acquiring discipline is far more easy. An individual that can't discipline themselves will struggle to control their mind. And if you can't control your mind, how could you ever control reality? And if you can't control your mind, how could you ever expect yourself to trust and control reality? It makes no sense. Now,
what could you accomplish if you had the motivation that you wish to have? What could you accomplish if you no longer procrastinated? Oftentimes, your battery is depleted. And when your battery is depleted, unfortunately, you have no battery to use. And more often than not, there are things in your reality that you know you should be doing that would lead to the materialization of your desired reality. But for whatever reason, you just can't seem to do it. And it's because you're unconscious to the spiritual science of motivation and procrastination. So, I want to start with the foundations. Always lay down the wood first. Pause. And we have to start with my definition of manifestation in order for us to end up fulfilling our desired reality. And the typical definition of manifestation that people have is the idea of altering reality, changing the external, creating the reality you want, shaping reality with your thoughts. But the issue with all of these definitions is that your entire focus is centralized on the external. And the external, the third dimensional realm, is nothing more than an illusion. And if you get caught up in an illusion, then you'll always be trapped. So even the very basis for the definition of manifestation is nothing more than a distraction. Because the true process of manifestation is internally shifting to a degree to which you're no longer emotionally dependent upon seeing your reality change when you're good with it and you're good without it. That is the only process that will lead you to the materialization of your desired reality. Now, whether that's to make more money, whether that's to be in a relationship, whether that's to attain a job, a certain career promotion, more sales in your business, enhance your career, no matter what it is, the process of you materializing that reality is dependent upon you internally shifting, because everything that exists outside of you is dependent upon what's inside of you. But if you're not paying attention to the process of what's happening inside of you, then you're ignorant to what is cultivating and perpetuating what's going on outside of you. Most people get caught up in this trap where they're looking outside of them and they're seeing nothing's changed, and they're upset with the fact that nothing's changed. But if nothing has changed externally, it's because nothing is changing internally. But how could things change internally if you're getting focused on the external? Doesn't make any sense. Because everybody feels like they're lacking motivation, and everybody feels plagued by procrastination. And unfortunately, until you have the capability of mastering both of those energies, there will be no creation. First things first, when we're talking about motivation and procrastination, action is not the solution, it is a distraction. Now, typically, what happens when people are lacking motivation, they have this desire to just do it, right? Nike, just do it. Let me just, I'm procrastinating on, not doing this. I need to study, not doing this. I need to procrastinate on doing this. There's this thing that I know I need to do. Let me just do it. Motivated, just do it without motivation. I'm not really feeling up to it right now. I'm not really feeling up to it. Just do it. Action is not the solution. It is a distraction. And let me explain why. One thing that you have to understand is that, like I said, when we're talking about the concepts of motivation and procrastination, you have to understand what is really going on a metaphysical level. Now, you have your old frequency. Your old frequency is nothing more than the spiritual doppelganger of everything that you're trying to move away from. So it's comprised of your past beliefs, your old perceptions, your old placements of attention, your old emotionally charged thoughts, your old beliefs, so on and so forth, your old expectations, your old reactions. Your old frequency is literally an entity, a version of you that exists on the spiritual plane. And because it exists on the spiritual plane is a causal plane, which means it has the capability of affecting your reality. And because it exists on the spiritual plane, which is the causal plane, it can affect your reality because reality is an effect, hermetic law of cause and effect. You have to be aware of how your old frequency is going to sneakily finesse you. This is exactly how. It paints the idea that action is the solution. But action isn't the solution, it's a distraction. And let me tell you why. By the time that an individual takes an action, it is in the realm of effect. The third dimensional realm that we live in, where your ego exists, your physical vessel. The third dimensional realm to which we exist, the physical plane, is the realm of limitation. And it's the realm of limitation because it is what takes place after the cause. It is the effect. And because it is the effect, the idea of changing your reality by changing your reality is equivalent to you saying changing an effect by changing an effect. That doesn't make any sense. You cannot change an effect by changing an effect. You want to alter your reality by harnessing and focusing on action. But action is confined to the realm of limitation because the third dimensional realm is the realm of limitation. And because you're trying to solve your reality by doing something within your reality, it's no more equivalent than saying, I'm going to change an effect by changing an effect. And here's the thing, it's a distraction because the only way to change anything physically is to change what exists vibrationally. Because before anything can exist physically, it first exists vibrationally. As within, as without, on earth, as it is in heaven. There can be no outer change until there's first inner change.